So I wanted to explain some general. Sorry, I wanted to explain some general issues that, given how well educated this group is, may be way too superficial. In which case, I apologize. But next slide. Oh, just the introduction. We EAH. Well, half the room knows that we were founded 43 years ago in Marin County, and I have been working on affordable housing ever since, and currently we're serving 18,000 residents in both California and Hawaii, which I find astounding. I've been there for 25 years. And I think it's great that the, next slide please, that the conversation, even if it was inadvertent on Mitt Romney's part, that the conversation about poverty is now at least for getting its 15 minutes of fame on national television, and I would love it if the conversation would continue for a long time, because in fact, this is an old slide, but it illustrates well the fact that the problem has been developing, income inequality has been developing for over 30 years as our manufacturing jobs moved away. And as you can see, the lowest 20% of families' incomes have really stagnated over that period as the incomes of the upper tier income earners or non-earners, coupon clippers, have grown. Next slide, please. Oops, we lost the slides entirely. So what we've ended up with now, and you see this term a lot in the papers, is what people call an hourglass economy, which is the wealthy section, the upper section of sands flowing through the hourglass is growing, and the middle section, the middle class is getting squeezed into poverty, which was exacerbated greatly by the financial crash in 2008. And in that crash, high-income workers' incomes, the net overall trend, high-income workers' incomes have risen by over 64% between 1980 and 2010, whereas the middle class incomes have increased 14% in the last 30 years. And low-wage workers saw incomes rise only 1.6% in the same period. So you can see how they're getting left behind. Now we really do need the slide for the next one, unfortunately. Oh, shoot. So I pulled up, there's lots of very high housing cost markets around the Bay Area. I thought San Jose would provide a nice middle ground. Not as high as Marin or San Francisco, lots and lots of employment there. So the slide with the green dollar bills, 2 slides, the next one, there you go. So this shows the single-family home price in Santa Clara County, $535,000, and then a lot, which sounds modest if you live in Marin County or San Francisco, doesn't it? But if you look at the occupations along the bottom, sort of representative sample of people in the community who employed full-time cannot afford the home, which would require an income of $121,000 to afford, not including, of course, the need for a down payment, which I understand has come back into fashion with lenders. Stunning concept. Next slide shows what a townhouse and a condo is in Santa Clara County, basically. It's not just San Jose. And that actually looks pretty affordable. I mean, an elementary school teacher can almost patch it together to get a condo, a median condo. So maybe a school teacher could afford a slightly less than median condo and make it if, again, he or she could get the down payment. Then next slide shows, however, what the income, oops, you're one ahead of me, back up one, please, shows what incomes are required to pay the median rents. And the middle line, in the 2-bedroom, you need almost $65,000 to meet the HUD definition of affordability, again, which is 30% of your income as defined by HUD. And of course, many people pay much more than 30% of their income for housing. But that's what it takes to have an affordable 2-bedroom. In fact, we were operating off a fair market rent data that was wrong. It's actually $1,740. And then as you see, the incomes increase. The 3-bedroom would take an income of $93,000 and a 1-bedroom of $54,000. So the next slide shows you a sample of a few professions and how far they fall short of that 1623 number. Retail salesperson could afford $633 for rent, preschool teacher $831, nurses aide $867, and I'm very fond of nurses aides, incidentally. I think that's employment web speak for certified nursing assistants, but anyone who's had a parent in assisted care knows how hard certified nursing assistants work, the backbone of assisted care or nursing care, and enthusiastic nods, no kidding, and it's a tough job. It has 4 times the back injury rate of coal mining. Seriously, it's very hard work and requires a tremendous amount of compassion. And talk about being a growth industry. The surge in population that's going to be occurring among seniors is enormous. So we really need these folks to be living near us and among us, and I frankly am just terrified of having a bunch of certified nursing assistants on my block. I think I've died gone to heaven and some capable people near me. And from the reactions Tim's describing, we know that often that's not the case. Then a medical assistant, again, can't afford the rent, either from an auto service technician, maybe the one I pay could. Even a postman, although they're about to be extinct, sadly, can't afford the rent. So next slide, please. This is just an example of a family that was written up in Chronicle quite a few years ago that was paying 42% of their income for housing. And the little chart on the left, the reason I included these, the little chart on the left just sums up nicely the fact what a huge percentage of your overall expenses as a household go to your housing costs. Next slide shows the same thing. This is a family that has a house that they owned at the time this was done. They were paying 63% of their income for housing. The next family down, they were paying 30%, which is the target number, and they had $345 a month left over for quote-unquote extra cash. Well, go to the doctor without health insurance and see how long $345 lasts you. Next slide. A minimum wage worker earning a wage of $8 an hour has to work in Santa Clara County 164 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, to afford the median FMR for a 2-bedroom apartment. And well, we know that's impossible. But I just have to stop and quote Barbara Ehrenreich here, who's one of her favorite sayings is that the problem with Americans is that they think that poverty is a character flaw. And that's not what we see at EAH. What we see is people who are working multiple jobs, trying to keep their lives together and get food on the table, plus get the kids to school, and the kids are taking care of the other kids, and one little one won't put on their shoes, or you miss the bus and you're late for your class, and it's an exhausting, horrible treadmill to be stuck on. And so recently we rented up a building in San Jose, which fortunately, thank God, had Section 8 on every unit, 50 units, 400 people applied, and every single one of the 50, and we've been getting another 12 applications, 12 to 20 applications a week. And every one of the people practically who moved in was in overcrowded housing before they moved into these apartments. And they all think they could just dive and gone to heaven, and so do we. We're so happy to have them. I just wish I could multiply that building many times over. But this last bullet point on here illustrates the point about overcrowding, which is that if you have 4.1 minimum wage earners sharing the apartment, then and working 40 hours a week year-round, then you can have enough income to make the 2-bedroom median rent. Next slide pertains to seniors. If you're dependent on your Social Security income, then your payments for an individual now are $845, and the affordable component of that for rent would be $254, something in that range, because the fair market rent in San Jose for a 1-bedroom is $1,416. Does that sync up with my other slide? No, sorry. You get the general idea. The technical problems here. So next slide, the affordable housing on average means that rents are going to be below market $300 to $400, and You have more spending power for necessities, freedom from overcrowded and dilapidated units, and reduced risk of eviction, which means much more stability for kids in school. Next slide, services. We provide a smattering of services across our buildings, but picking up on Elaine's presentation, none of these services are by any means deep enough or comprehensive enough to serve people who are hardest to house. So how conventional nonprofit housing providers address this is by working with other service providers. We first get rent subsidies, or a federal program that comes with rent subsidies, and then we set units aside and we partner up with a group like Buckaloo Houses in Marin County, which works with people with psychiatric disabilities, or people who work with people with developmental disabilities, and then we just deal with property management, and they come in and provide the services, and we provide the apartment. And that's a very successful formula that works. Here are some of the services that we do provide, though. Computer learning centers, after-school programs. Next slide, lots of tutoring, chess clubs, straight A programs, kinds of mentoring programs for kids. I'm happy to share this with anybody, just give me your business card. And then senior services, next slide down, we provide wellness, nutrition and exercise, fall prevention, food banks, connections, and so on. And I don't have time in 2 minutes to go through the rest of my slides, but there is such a wealth of things for the League of Women Voters to do. You could click on the next slide if you wish. There's going to be so many opportunities for informed and active people who are interested in government working right to be involved. I would encourage people from all the different League chapters to join together with one of the great housing organizations, of which there are many. There's a housing group called East Bay Housing Organizations that's based in Oakland and works up and down the East Bay. There's one that represents housing groups all over the area called Northern California for Nonprofit Housing Association, or NPH. There's a statewide one called California Housing Consortium, and all of them give regular updates, and you can sit in on the phone calls, whether you're a member or not, of what the pending legislation is, and then what the positions are that these organizations would take would be emailed out to you or made available on the web. And we would so appreciate your support with helping us in this time of huge transition, when all of the big funding supports are exhausted at the worst I've seen it in 30 years. It's really quite remarkable. And then, as Linda Mandolini and Susan noted, the cuts are still have not all rolled through at the federal level. And the federal level, actually, if you click ahead, just keep clicking. I'm looking at the computer over there. I'll show you one chart that really gives a good example. This is that last slide is an example of what you can do when you do a community plan. Shoot, now I'm having a senior moment. I can't forget. I should have thought using that word senior moment. It's not a good. My time's basically up. Well, I'll think of it in a moment, but it's a specific plan. That development was created with, the last slide is in Corte Madera. That was created with a lawsuit, but it's an example of an overlay zone. And the next slide is of a development in Oakland that's about to be built. Fortunately, it got its money just before redevelopment was eliminated. And the next slide after that, just pause right there. This gives you an idea, I think, in a good graphic form, of how important federal tax credit dollars are, which is the bar on the far right, which is 38% of the budget. And the bar on the far left is what we just lost, which is redevelopment. And the other local funds bar is probably in the process of being cut back as we speak. And this chart is, with some variations, roughly representative of every development that all of the nonprofits are building, with a tall bar on the right for tax credits and a slightly less tall bar on the left for redevelopment. So just to let you see the impact on our funding of losing redevelopment and where that's going. So just go down 2 more slides, please. This is also there, one more. These folks really need your help. Their lines are waiting out the door. We have 1,400 people in San Jose right now waiting for 200 units. Next slide. Affordable housing is a real asset to our community. And last slide is a plea for your assistance.